Okay, it's recording. All right. So a quick introduction about me. I graduated from CU with a master's in computer science in May of 2021. So I graduated like 4 months ago. Um, I'm currently working as a data engineer at Dish Network here in Littleton. So it's only like a 45-minute drive from Boulder. Um, my work mainly so far, it's basically been designing data models, automating ETL pipelines we also have a machine learning teams. So automating the ETL pipeline so that we can feed data to them. And it's been a lot about automating data quality checks as well. Since my team sits at the end of the pipeline, so we're getting data from a lot of sources. So it's basically just a lot of data engineering stuff. And it works great for me because my specialization at CU, I was a course-based master student. So my specialization at CU was in data science and engineering. So I had some, data engineering background, and in fact, that really helped me a lot in the interview process as well. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm currently doing. Before my master's, I did my undergrad in computer science back from India. I graduated in 2018. And then after that, I worked for a year at an investment bank called Credit Suisse. And then, I came for my master's in 2019. So as you might have guessed, mine was pretty much the worst struck most, like what do you call the worst struck batch by COVID, because most of my masters, almost like I would say 70% of my masters was remote. So I just got 1.25 semesters in person. Rest everything just went remote after that. And that, of course, it impacted the job and internship search as well. So I would say my batch was the worst impacted by it because it happened right, probably by March, a lot of companies, they just stopped interviewing. And that kind of carried on into fall when we were looking for full-time jobs. So we were pretty, badly impacted by it. But I think most of my batchmates now, after more vaccinations started, everything started to open up in April, sort of May-ish. A lot of my batchmates got great offers from big tech companies. So they're now all, working at great companies. And for you guys right now, this is the best time because there is, especially for full-timers who are looking for full-time jobs, there are just so many opportunities that have opened up. Many companies are just on a hiring spree because because COVID created a void in the last year and a half. So there should be a lot of opportunities for you guys and even internships. Um, I'm sure like a lot of companies must have already posted their internships, and they must be hiring more than ever since they really did not hire a lot in the last year and a half. So so yeah, let's go over my internship search experience first, and I'll also share some helpful resources which I found to be really useful. Um, so my internship search experience, I started applying. First, of course, you have to create a resume. So the first tip from me would be create a one-page resume. For interns, you do not need a two-page resume. Just don't do it. Keep a one-page resume. Most likely, your resume will never even reach a recruiter. It'll probably, the first step is an automated tracking system that will filter out all the resumes. So big companies like Amazon and which just get tons and tons of applications, the recruiters don't have time to review each application. So most likely your resume will be filtered out by an automated tracking system. So make sure that first of all it's one pager. Second of all, it should be technical enough. Like, don't say something on a really high level basis um, that just does not give any technical sense to it. Like, I don't know how these automated systems work, but you need to have at least some relevancy to the job that has been posted. Now that does not, I would not say, like a lot of people would say that customize your resume to fit the particular job description, but that is not practical at all. Like there are 300 400 internship positions that must have already been posted by now. You cannot spend like half an hour per application, because it's just, you won't get that much time, right? So I would stick to like probably just make one or two, maybe just stick to one resume, but make it technically detailed enough, in the sense that there is just for someone who's reading it, they should know what technologies you guys have used in that in that specific role or project. And it should not basically be high enough, saying that, oh well, I achieved a performance accuracy of 30%, but how did you do it? It should be concisely explained. uh, and of course, it's always helpful to mention the technologies that you guys used. So I would say first in your resume, have the education section. Next would be skills, because that's really important. And skills, if you can divide them by uh, web skills, and then databases, and then languages, and so on, programming languages. And then after that should come your work experience. I would in for interns, work experience, I would say, is not the most important thing, because they remember one thing, that you are applying for internships with all these sophomores and juniors from undergrad, right? So they don't have any work experience, but they still get hired at big tech companies. So work experience, it is helpful for of course, if you have it, but it's not the first thing that should be shown in your in your resume. So after your work experience should come your projects. Probably if you have space, mention like 3 projects, but if you don't, mention at least 2 projects, because projects would definitely matter for internship positions. Um, so yeah, that should be your resume, and don't try to fill in everything. You have to prioritize, like if you try to fill in everything, you will have to reduce the font size to like 7 or 8, which is just extremely difficult to read. So make sure that it's about a 10-11 point font size, and don't try to include everything. You might think that, oh, this point is important, that point is important, but in reality it probably does not even matter. So you have to decide what is priority for your resume and what is not. So try to keep it big enough so that it's readable by human, but also make it technically detailed enough, so that you are highlighting which technologies did you use and what exactly did you do in that project. So that is as far as resume goes. So I started applying by around this time last year, and I felt I was late, honestly, because there were already so many postings that had already happened. Like Amazon and all those. I believe they post their applications in like at the end of, I believe, July. And a lot of big tech companies, they already start hiring, in full flow. And a lot of them, I believe, they try to complete their hiring as soon as possible by the end of the semester, or by the end of the year rather. So one of my experiences, why I would say apply as soon as you can, is because for Amazon, I had applied around this time last year. And the first step in after most applications, after you clear the resume screening by either automated tracking system or by a recruiter, is that you will get an online assessment, which will most likely have lead code style questions. Um, so we'll talk about lead coding a bit later, but once you clear that, that's when you get the next step, which for Amazon was an interview, a 45-minute interview. So I got that in January. Like my interview was scheduled in January. And the thing that happened, at least with at my time, was that they had finished their quota of interns for that particular year at the end of December, and I had interviewed on like January 3rd or 4th. So they had ran out of internship positions. They put me on a wait list. And then when finally I was informed by a recruiter that they will be moving on to an offer, COVID happened. So they just froze all the offers that they were going to hand out. and they just did not give out any other offers as far as I'm aware. Um, so that's when I felt, if I'd interviewed probably a couple weeks ago, I would have gotten an offer from them, right? So do not, if you think that you have not done enough lead coding, and if you all of a sudden you get an interview and you just don't have the confidence that you've not done enough lead coding, so you're definitely going to not crack the interview. Don't have that mindset, because if you apply today, you're not going to get the interview tomorrow or this week, right? There's going to be a process before that. There is that online assessment thing that goes on. Then there is other steps that I don't know what other companies do, but interview will be probably a few weeks down the line, and by then of course you would have practiced a lot of lead code, right? So if you're thinking that first you will practice lead code, and then when you're confident, after you've gained a lot of confidence in lead coding, that's after that you will start applying for jobs, that's just too late. That's not a good strategy to have. um, because it'll just be, you are basically losing out on positions. People, I'm sure, must have already started getting offers. So start applying, even if you never even touched lead code. First step is create that resume. You can go to career services to have it reviewed, but I didn't find that useful because they only explained it, they only gave me tips on how to improve my resume, based on like the formatting of the resume, on what should be prioritized, and like what section should be prioritized, what should show up first. They did not review it in a technical manner. So I never got like a technical review of my resume from them, but you can give it a shot. It's free of cost anyway. So um, have it reviewed by them if you want, but start applying. Don't waste time thinking that first I'll do lead coding and then I'll apply 1 month later or something. By then, so you must have already lost so many opportunities. And if you get an interview, it's not necessary that you have to crack the first one. It's just good experience to have. Even if you've never ever lead coded and you still get an interview, it's still good experience to have, in the sense that you'll at least know what to expect in the next interview that you get, right? So don't waste time in applying. If you've already started applying, if you already started getting these online assessments, that's great. But if you've not even began creating your resume, do it today after this call. Just start. Don't waste time. So COVID, after last March, COVID started, and a lot of my batchmates actually lost offers too. Um, so I never stopped applying. Actually, I don't even remember. I probably applied to like 400 or 500 positions, and then eventually at the end of April, or I think beginning of May, I got an internship offer from a startup that's kind of getting big in Connecticut. It's, state really close to New York. Um, so I was working. It worked out well for me because I worked with them on CPT for 3 semesters. That's the summer term, and I worked with them in fall as well as a part-time intern, and I worked with them in spring as well, as a part-time intern, all remotely, of course. So that is what my internship experience was like. So coming to some resources, which I'll also post in the chat. First one is, at least during my time, they had this repo, and it's great that they are actually continuing on to develop on top of this repo. So this basically repo, it tracks all the major sort of major, minor, all sort of companies that have posted software engineering related internships. So if you've not applied to any of them, first step I would say, rather than just blindly going around LinkedIn and trying to search for positions, apply to all these companies that are out here. That would be the first step, I would say. So there are, as you can see, there are just already so many companies have already posted their positions. I see some have even like crossed out. That means they've already finished their hiring for interns, which is crazy. So I'm going to post this link in the chat. I'll also, it's there in these slides as well. So I will, hold on. We can, if I saw a question in the chat, so we'll have a Q&A session at the end, or I'll also drop my phone number if you want to ask it privately. But I just want to finish the content right now. So that's the first link that I dropped. These are for internships. Um, okay, but this is a good question. Thanks, Arvind, to bring that up. So go first of all, go through all these, apply to all of them. I could, there are at least 100 in there, so it'll take a bit of time for you guys to apply. So apply to all of them. Um, that would be the first step, I would say. So the question that Arvind asked to me is, how did you manage your internship search with, your coursework? So that's a great question. So I had taken algos and NLP in my first semester, and algos. I mean, I'm not that smart to solve algos assignments in one day. So I would spend like half a week doing those assignments, and it would just take a chunk of my time just trying to figure out what the assignment is asking. So yeah, so that it got definitely it algos for me was like two. It was not a hard course, it was like two medium courses, because it just took so much time, and you have assignments every week, right? So so it definitely was challenging, but I would say that is the only thing that we were doing, right? Apart from algos assignment, NLP was super light, so that's not stressful at all. But anytime I was not doing an algos assignment, I was applying to jobs, right? I had my resume saved on my phone. So even when I'm traveling in a bus or something, I would just sit and apply for a couple of jobs. um, so just have your resume saved. If you're traveling somewhere, go to, if you already applied to all these that are there in this list, go to LinkedIn, go to the job section, search for software engineering intern. I would recommend, do not restrict it by region, just be open to travel anywhere. It's only 3 months, so you should be fine. Just search for jobs and save them, right? If it's an easy apply via LinkedIn, apply it immediately. If it needs you to fill out some information, save it, go home, and then apply. So I was spending a lot of my time, at least when I started applying for internships, a lot of my time just applying, as much as I can. At least the first month, I did not spend as much time on lead coding as I spent on applying. So that is one of the first mistakes that I made, is don't ignore lead coding. I was treating lead coding like an exam syllabus, that if I just do all nighters and just lead code for 3 days before my interview, I'll be able to crack it. That's not going to happen. Lead code is a skill. Lead coding is a skill that you will have to acquire over time. But we'll go over that. But don't treat lead code as as a question bank. If you treat it as a question bank, then you're not utilizing it to the fullest extent, not at all. So treat it like you have to develop a skill. Okay, lead coding is a skill. And don't think that, okay, someone told me, or you found out from somewhere that Amazon is asking these set of 20 questions a lot. It's not that you are going to get those questions. In fact, I had Lead Code Premium at that time, and Lead Code Premium allows you to see what questions as Amazon asked. So before my interview, I had almost done like 40, 50 odd Amazon questions, and I was asked something completely different on heaps that I've never even like touched. So do not treat that. Do not think that if you just do all those company tagged lead code questions, you're good for the interview. No, you can be asked anything. Okay, so yeah, make sure that you lead code um, as often as you can. I would say now that you've started applying for internships, or when you start applying for internships, that should be, I would keep it as your number one priority, especially if you have come to the US to do a job after your master's, which I know a lot of people must have. So searching for a job should be your number one priority. That does not mean, of course, that you should just ignore your assignments and whatnot. Um, but how do I put it? Like, don't spend way too much time, unnecessary time, doing stuff that will not matter down the road. Okay. Um, Once you're done with the assignment that you have to do for that week, apply. You get some free time, apply for internships. And then if you are really, oriented and really like organized, then you would probably follow a strict lead code schedule that you have to solve 5 questions by Tuesday evening or something like that, right? That will be the best approach. If you can find the time. I just did not find the time because algos for me was way too difficult. So lead code for me just took a step back because I spent so much time completing algos assignments. But if that's not the case with you, I would say spend equal amount of time between applying jobs and applying and doing lead code. Don't ignore lead code. Don't wait to get an interview and then do lead code 3 days before that. That's not going to work. Just believe me. So I hope that would answer your question, Arvind. I want to move to some full-time experience, and then we can talk a bit more about what I would do, since I've already made those mistakes with not lead coding as often as possible, what I would do if I was in your place right now. So for full-time, I started really early. I started applying like July, I think, and by August end, I'd applied to like 150 odd, like whatever I could find for new grad positions. I applied for all of those. um, Now the thing is, if you have, I only had 1 year experience, so applying for experienced roles was not really, for me, because a lot of those roles they looked for one or more, or sorry, 2 or more years of experience. So I was anyways going to be rejected for that. But the thing is, if you apply for these industry positions in like August, by industry positions, I mean, for Amazon, let's say if you have 3 years of experience, you probably could technically qualify to apply for SD2. So if you apply for some SD2 position that you saw on Amazon.jobs in August, when you're going to graduate next May, you are going to get rejected, because industry positions, they usually want someone who can start working in like 3 or 4 weeks, or they assume that you're working somewhere, or you will be able to work for them in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks or something. Okay, so if you want to apply, you can try applying to industry positions. I applied for a few that were good enough for my work experience, but I was rejected straight off the bat. Like they weren't even reaching the like the, what do you call, they were getting rejected the second I applied. It was basically automated. But you can try if you want. I would recommend first apply to new grad positions, and again, luckily we have this new grad applications list that is on GitHub, so I'll post that in the chat. Where is the chat? Okay. Yeah. So so I would, again, if you not even started applying for new grad positions, start right now. Um, and start by applying to all these. I don't think there are as many as the intern positions, but uh, I don't even know if they cover all the ones that are available or that have been posted. But start with this. This is a great list. And for new grad too, I would say, since you're applying to new grad positions, stick to a one-page resume. Two-page resumes are typically for those who have a lot more experience, like 3, 4 years of experience, and they are applying for industry positions that are at SD2 level or up. But if you're applying for new grad positions right now, stick to a one-page resume, but highlight your work experience. Like it should be technically detailed enough, because it would help you in this case. Like it makes sense for the companies, right? If they're getting someone who has 3 years of work experience for the price of a new grad, and if they have someone with no experience and they have to pay the same amount of money to that guy, like who do you think they'll prefer, right? It's going to be most likely that experienced person. So so it makes sense for the company, and even in my batch, a lot of the people who had 3, 4 years of experience, they're working at like great companies right now: Salesforce, Amazon, um, I don't know, like what else, like Twitter, I think, Microsoft. These guys, they landed a great job. I definitely their work experience must have helped them. right? So for now, I would say stick to applying to new grad positions. Um, Once March comes, like around March, mid-March, you can apply for industry positions, because it's not that when you apply you're going to get an interview the next day. It'll take time too. So the position that I'm working in right now at Dish, that is an industry position. So like they wanted 2+ years of work experience, but I was still considered for that role, despite the fact that I just have one. And so I had applied. In fact, actually, a recruiter had reached out to me on LinkedIn for a completely different role at Dish. But I asked her if she can recommend me for, or reach out to some teams for data engineering or software engineering positions, which she did. And after, that's when I got my interview. So there are two things in this scenario. First is keep your LinkedIn updated. This is like really important for new grad people, because recruiters will reach out to you. uh, if you have a good updated LinkedIn profile, recruiters will definitely reach out to you. It's not, I mean, for interns it's definitely helpful, but I mean, it's not as important as it is for new grads. Okay, so first one is update your LinkedIn profile with everything. Just add everything that you can about your experience and about your background. And the second thing is, if a recruiter reaches out, and even if it's a role that is completely not interesting to you, reply back to them, ask them if there is any software engineering or data engineering or whatever ML engineer roles that are available. Like, don't ignore a recruiter's email, recruiter's message on LinkedIn. That is very difficult to happen, because I have tried just blindly messaging any recruiter I could find for new grad roles, just asking them, literally begging them to give me an interview. None of them ever replied. So getting a message from a recruiter is just really great. And so don't ignore that. Even if it's a completely different position, at least reply back to them and ask them if they have any relevant positions, or if they know of any relevant positions. They will at least reply back to you. So that's one. Okay, let's come to lead coding now. I see a few questions in chat, so let's go over those first. Um, so Arvind asked me how I was doing my internships during the semesters. Okay, so my internship, they were pretty flexible. It wasn't like I had to work 4 hours. It was a part-time internship, so only 20 hours a week. So it wasn't that they wanted me to work every day or something. I could choose my schedule. So I would mostly work on weekends and finish up my work as soon as I could. So sometimes I did not even like work for 20 hours. But sometimes I would just combine all my work and do it over one weekend. So it wasn't like they were requiring me to work every day or something. So it was super flexible, which is why I really got away with it. Um, but if it was something like I had to work 4 hours every day, or I don't know, 8 hours for 2 days, 4 hours for one day, that would have been tough to accommodate. Because flexibility is why I actually chose to continue with that internship. But I believe now the CPT rules, at least for the international students, the CPT rules has changed. So it might be difficult to do an internship during the semester, because I believe you have to take a 3 credit, or I don't know, 1 credit course or something. um, so I'm not sure if it's worth doing it, since you'll basically be paying to do an internship. So yeah, it's up to you. But for me, it was super flexible, which is why I was able to do it. How can one transition from from software engineering to data engineering? Um, I took quite a few number of data related courses during my masters, and I was even the projects that I did were heavily focused on cloud and data engineering. Like I had a lot of, so even when you're selecting your projects, if you're good at something already, like I was pretty good at front end. So I told whichever team member I was working with that I was not going to do front end, because if I just had front end related stuff on my resume, then that's not going to add a lot of value. So for projects, if you're good at, let's say, backend, try something different. Try something that will help you, put new skills on into in your resume. So coming back to the question, what helped me was, I had that data science and engineering specialization, um, and I did a lot of data engineering projects. Like during summer, I also work with Professor Ryan Lear. Along with my internship, I was also working on this project, and that was an end-to-end data engineering project, basically. It was an official CU Boulder project too. So just doing those sort of projects, I spoke a lot about it in my interview at Dish, and they were pretty impressed because they were doing something very similar, right? So if you want to transition from software to data engineering, since most professors sort of give you the liberty to choose whatever projects you want to do, I would say pick projects that in which your work will be more revolving around data engineering. You know, and yeah, it's if you're interested in ML, pick projects that will have you doing the ML stuff. If anyone else is doing something else, let them do it, but just make it clear that you want to do ML, and make sure to put that in your resume, of course. um, so these projects matter a lot. Like like your interviewers will ask you about this kind of stuff, and if you've worked on something that is very closely related to what the team is already doing, it is going to help you. Okay, so that's how you can transition from software to data, is by just doing projects that are related to data engineering. Okay. So moving on to lead coding. So again, we spoke a bit about it, but one thing I would highlight is do not treat lead code as a question bank. If you think that you will go to lead code, and then if you have lead code premium, they even give you the option of filtering out by companies. Like, I don't have premium, but if you have premium, you can select a company, and then if you have, let's say, an interview with VMware, you can say click on VMware and see all the questions that were, which were most frequent, which were least frequent. That is super helpful for sure, but don't think that if you do that you're going to clear the interview. It's just not true. So the recommended approach from my side would be go breadth first and then go depth. So by that I mean, uh, pick up, like, if you've never done any of this, this sort of competitive programming before, pick something that you are comfortable doing, like arrays. Everyone knows what arrays are. Everyone knows what strings are. Not everyone knows what dynamic programming is. Not everyone has worked with binary trees and whatnot. So start with something you're comfortable with, because that is what is going to build your confidence. And then I saw that Arjun also shared a really helpful Google Doc with what sort of questions can come in interviews. So that is super helpful. Go through that too, but start with something that is useful. Like if you're confident, if you just know how arrays work, start with arrays. Start doing easy questions of arrays. As you don't focus on the timing as of yet, but as you as you build confidence, move on to some medium lead code questions. But I would say, by breadth first approach, what I meant is that you should first try to cover all the topics and then go deep into one topic. Okay, so so let's say if you pick arrays, do 10 to 15 questions. Like, you can do 6 7 easy questions, 6 7 medium questions. Hard questions are not really, I don't think, I've never faced a hard question in any of my interviews. So if you're just passionate about lead coding, go for it. It's not really that useful. So do 6 7 easy questions, 6 7 medium questions, move on to strings. Do the same for strings. Then move on to hash tables. Do the same for hash tables. So try to cover as many topics as you can. um, so let's say if you have an interview coming up in 10 days, you're not going to be able to do all of these topics in 10 days, right? So for that, my approach would be, now that I've already gone through that process, my approach, what I would do is, I would pick topics that I'm not comfortable with. Like, I have very little confidence in dynamic programming, then not a lot of confidence in, like, these math related questions, um, like, not a lot of confidence in greedy algorithms. So I would say what I would do is first go through some YouTube tutorials, or if you have this book called Elements of Programming Interviews in Python, that's helpful too, because that what they do is they basically go over each topic in depth, and that'll help you a lot as well. So what I would do if I'm not comfortable with dynamic programming, I would go through that. If I'm not comfortable with tree, I would go through that, solve some problems, do that with 2 3 other topics that I'm not comfortable with until my interview comes, right? If you're already comfortable with lead coding, if you're already comfortable with most topics, then I would suggest go to this companies tab, and then do those company specific questions. If you try to rote learn the lead code questions thinking that, oh, this company has asked 30 questions, so you'll do like the 15 most frequent questions. If you try to rote learn it like that, it's not going to work. So so yeah, because those questions, it's not necessary that all the questions that you see under that company tag are for new grad level, right? And then a lot of interviewers, I recently met another, like an interview, a guy who takes interviews on behalf of Amazon, and he told me he creates his own questions. Like, he does not even go to lead code or anything. So a lot of interviewers, they have the freedom to design their own questions. So if you think, oh, I'll do these 15 most frequent questions for VMware and I'm going to have an offer by the end of the week, not going to work. So if you have an interview coming up in 10 days or something, do those topics which you're not comfortable with. But if you don't have any interviews lined up or something, try following this this breadth first approach, where you try to cover each topic, do like 10 15 questions for that topic, and then once you're comfortable with most of these topics, go depth. So pick like dynamic programming, solve as many questions as you can for dynamic programming, in a sense that your target should be, if anyone asks me what dynamic programming is, I should be able to answer that in layman terms. If anyone gives me an easy medium question, I should be able to answer that. So another concern is that, how do you identify a question is dynamic programming or not? Like, how do you identify, if I get a tree based question, how do I know if I have to apply DFS, BFS, or something else, right? So the answer to that is practice. There's just no shortcut to that. Like, once you do these tree related, like, I was scared of trees. I mean, I would just whenever I lead coded, you can see I have not done a lot of lead code. It's just 132 questions, right? And most of that was during my full time, so I did not even lead code a lot during my internship search. So whenever I lead coded, I tried to go to those questions or those topics in which I was comfortable. And I would mainly, because I was just scared of doing these binary tree questions. But you have to force yourself, even if it takes like 2 hours to solve one question, just you have to do it, because tree based questions are really popular in interviews, even in intern interviews. So you have to force yourself, even if you just do not understand that topic. I would recommend go through YouTube tutorials. If you have access to this Elements of Programming Interviews book, try going through that. It'll definitely help. But you have to go through it. You cannot just ignore one topic as big as trees just because like it scares you, right? So that's another mistake that I made, which you guys can correct. um, what else? And yeah, don't just stick to doing easy questions. Of course, in the beginning, yes, you would tend to do easy questions because that is what gives you confidence. But if you solved a good chunk of questions, you can just start straight away with medium questions. Like, if you've already covered 6 7 of these topics in breadth, in that uh, breadth approach that I'm talking about, you can go for binary trees, and then just, if you're comfortable with it, skip to medium questions and solve as many medium as you can, because that the medium questions are the ones that are going to give you confidence, right? um, so yeah, I think those were pretty much all the tips that I wanted to give about lead coding. um, I have a few questions in chat which I'll go through later, but so those were pretty much my tips as far as lead coding goes. There is, again, I'm going to say this again, that there is no shortcut to lead coding. If you treat it as a syllabus for your interview, it will not work. if you just try to do one topic every time, let's say if you lead code only once or twice a week or something, and if you just navigate to that same arrays or same strings topic, it's not really that useful either, because it's not going to give you confidence. um, so yeah, I would say try that breadth approach where you're covering each topic, but you're not doing as many questions. Like you're only doing 10, 15 odd questions. And once you're comfortable with all the topics, go depth first in those topics in which you're not that comfortable with. Like if you're not comfortable with binary trees, do those first, then move on to something, something else. So a couple more, I've already shared links to these first two. There's a Discord channel from CS Careers Dev. Ignore this. That's my gaming name. But I'll post this link in the chat if you guys want to join that. It's super helpful. Um, let's see. So they have this thing called Lead Code Bot that I found useful during my new grad. So where and that I would recommend doing that only once you're comfortable with lead coding basically. So like they have the syntax where you can put in like you can basically say something like problems for Amazon, like your problems MathWorks, and it gives you the most popular problems for MathWorks in the last 6 months. um, Again, do this when you're comfortable with lead coding. If you only do these three questions and go to a MathWorks interview, you're going to get rejected. You won't clear it. Okay, so once you're comfortable with lead coding, and if you don't have premium, because premium shows you which were the most frequent ones, you can use this to see what problems are most popular for that company in the last 6 months. And then some of these questions might be premium, but some of them may not be. So yeah, just go through all of them. I'll post that link in the chat as well. No. And there's this CS Careers Dev website too, which I've had found useful. So if you guys want to go over that as well. Okay. Yeah, so the CS Careers Dev that I'm talking about, it's useful for tracking. Like there is this process tracking thing that they have, and it shows you how many companies have like already started giving offers, and what's the process like for each company. So like let's say for Amazon, there is already 43 rejects, 74 people have got online assessment, 34 people have even got offers. So the data, they get this data from this lead code sorry, this Discord channel. Like there's one of the channels where people, I don't know. There's a channel where people just post that they've got an offer from this company, and that's the source for this data. But even apart from that, this I found this to be super useful because there might be companies that you don't even know of, and people just keep asking, what was the process like for this company, what was the process like for that company, and you may not have applied to that company. So first step would of course be go and apply for that company. And then a great way is that you even know what you even come to know, or you'll come to know what to expect in the interview process. So if I search for MathWorks, uh, like you'll just get, people must have posted just tons and tons of things about MathWorks, what their process, how their process is. Like first you get the online assessment, people will ask something like, oh, what questions were asked in online assessment, something like that. And then how was the interview for MathWorks. People will, if someone posts something like they got an offer from MathWorks, you can like send a message to that guy on personal chat and ask what was your interview like. So you will get at least some idea about what the interview is like, because many a times like these recruiters, they will not even tell you, they'll just tell you it's a technical interview. And they'll just say that, oh, you might get lead code questions, or you might get system design questions. But to ask someone who's literally gone through that interview process in this recruiting cycle is obviously the best source. So yeah, just join this channel. Of course, muted because there are like 30,000 people in this, but you can go through this, once a week or something, and just see what's going on with the interview process in different places. So that's that. And then yeah, this book called Elements of Programming Interviews in Python, that is useful as well. If you want to just not straight go to lead coding, but first, of course, I do lead coding in Python, but I believe they have different languages for this book. So if you want to go over this book, that's great, because it'll at least teach you a strategy on how to sort of or tackle these lead code questions. So yeah, if you can get a hold of this book, that's great. There are some questions in the chat that I want to answer now. If I can pull up the chat. Let me stop sharing. Okay. Many of my seniors in data science field suggest that big companies look for publications in AI/ML required to hire them. Since you mentioned you were course-based, what is your view on that? Did you face any difficulty? So, at least for the role that I am in right now, no, because they were not looking for research or anything related to that. They were just looking for work experience related to the job that they were hiring for. But in my experience, I don't think that lack of research really, affected me. Where I got sort of screwed in the final rounds of interviews was just lack of lead coding. I reached the final round of a few companies, but just somewhere, if like a company like Palantir, they pay a lot, but if they pay a lot, they also expect their hires to be super smart, like give them the optimal solution in the first attempt itself. I was not able to give an optimal solution even though my solution was correct, right? So it was just lack of lead coding that sort of hurt me really bad in these interviews. I don't think lack of research, at least the roles that you apply to, if they are not research based, like if they are not required, if they do not require you to do any sort of research, or if they are not specifically looking for PhDs, I don't think that lack of research experience really would affect you. And then don't see, wanted to know if it's okay to create a resume in LaTeX. If you do, just convert that to a PDF, or convert that to a PDF and send that. I don't know if that affects the automated tracking system or not, but just upload a PDF, I would say. Don't upload a doc file, because a Word doc file, because the formatting might get screwed up. So upload a PDF. Even if you're creating a LaTeX, I think that's fine. I think my first resume was in LaTeX. Yeah, the intern resume that I created was in LaTeX. So it's totally fine if you create it in LaTeX, but make sure you upload a PDF. Then, yeah, I don't see any other questions. So if are there any other questions that you guys want to ask?
I do have a question.
Sure.
Were you aiming for only data science jobs, or you were aiming for like even the software engineering jobs?
So I was aiming for both, like either.
Okay.
I am actually, I was open to full stack development or data engineering roles. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, my strategy for applying for new grad positions was first to go over this, the repo that I shared, go over, apply to all the jobs from that. And then, as I said, if I'm traveling in a bus, I would literally go to LinkedIn. If I had my resume saved, if it was an easy apply, I would just apply to that. If not, I would save it and then go home and apply. So yeah, I was applying to software engineering roles, data engineering roles, front-end engineering roles, back-end engineering roles, all sorts of roles. And LinkedIn is a great search tool. I would recommend Indeed as well. Indeed has
Mhm.
Indeed has some good job postings as well, and it's not necessary that those who have posted on LinkedIn will also post on Indeed. So it's not an intersection. It's not a complete overlap. So you can try Indeed as well. But I would recommend first go through these two repos. If you're new grad, go through the new grad repo, apply to all the jobs from there because they are specifically new grad positions. If you just run out of applications, then go on searching for uh, go on searching on LinkedIn, or if you want to work at some particular companies, then you would have to go to their careers page and then navigate through their careers page, try to look for new grad positions. That is a really time consuming process. um, so yeah, I really applied for everything I could find because it was tough for me. At least I was the COVID batch. So a lot of positions opened up only in March. So we did not even have a lot of positions to apply for in fall and even half of spring. Um, so yeah, but I think for you guys, it's opened up a lot. I can see that even my some of my friends who are who did not land a job even after graduation, they are now working at Amazon because Amazon is just on a hiring spree of sorts. A lot of companies are. So for new grads, it's great because you guys should have a lot of opportunities.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? Like there are some other, non-job related resources that non-job related resources that I wanted to share. One is CU Nitrite. I don't know if how many of you guys are aware about it, but CU has this sort of Uber type service where basically from like 7 p.m. until midnight or something, you have free nighttime transportation. You just have to download this thing, Trans Lock app or something, or I don't know. Like at my time, it was Tap Ride. Maybe they changed it to Trans Lock or something. But you just request a ride, like like Uber. It's pretty restricted around campus for now. But if you live in like Newton Court, Smiley Courts, or any of the graduate housing, or even somewhere on, I don't know, in or around those areas, you will get free rides. You basically have to book it like Uber. So that's one thing that you guys can make use of. Second is this study room. So at least in most of my life at CU was during COVID, so these study rooms were closed. But at least during my first semester, these study rooms were open for booking. It's free. There is no cost associated with booking a study room. So what I would do is, if I had an interview, and since I stayed with roommates, I would not really get a lot of quiet time to give an interview. So I would book one of these study rooms. I would book one of these study rooms, and you can, I think, in Norlin you can book for up to 4 hours. And even if they say like the capacity of the study room is 6, you can book it in for just for yourself, and you can just sit there for 4 hours or something. So I did a lot of my algos assignments in those study rooms, a lot of my interviews in those study rooms. So that's one. And then I think there is a new computer science sort of space, hangout space, in the behind that cafe. I forgot the name. Gravity South, I think. So there's a computer science space that just opened up in fall. So there are some rooms out there as well. I don't think you need to book those. At least I didn't see them requiring to be booked. So you can try those as well if you want to interview in peace. And then another thing is this car share. So I see a lot of Indian folks. So I don't have an official source for this, but I think you can drive for like 3 months on an Indian license, but just make sure you don't get pulled over by a cop. So Colorado car share, at least they let you access their service on an Indian license. So you can sign up using this code or something, and you get $20 in credit. So if you want to sign up for that, just do that. If you go on a hike or something, want to take a car and don't have a US driver's license, sign up for Colorado car share. And there are like, they have their cars parked in a lot of spaces. Like there are two outside Newton, one outside I think Marine Court too. Yeah, they have just a lot of parked vehicles in a lot of spaces across Boulder. So if you want to drive around, you can sign up for this. But I think those were all the tips that I wanted to share. If there are any other, I see one question in chat, but if that's private, I'll drop my number in the chat as well. If if you guys want to reach out privately via WhatsApp or something. Uh, okay, thanks for the question, Nikit. So this applies to everyone, so I'll answer it here. If we apply soon and get rejected, then will there be a cooling period in which we cannot apply? So if you apply and get rejected, and if you apply again soon, you probably will be rejected again. But at least for some companies like Amazon, their new grad hiring is different from their industry positions hiring. I say that because one of my friends, he had interviewed at the beginning of April. He got rejected for an industry SD 2 level position, but then he applied. Like Amazon opened up some new new grad SD positions in May. He applied for those and he got an offer in June. Okay, so I think their hiring process for new grads and as like industry positions is different, that the recruiter may not have noticed that this guy already got rejected less than 6 months ago. But some companies, I think, let's say if you apply for an industry position in Amazon, you get rejected in that, and you apply for it again, you will probably get rejected if you apply within 6 months. And by rejected, I mean only after interviewing. I don't think if you get rejected right after the OA stage, I don't think there's a cooling period after that. And I mean, there is no harm in applying anyway. So big companies like Amazon, the recruiters may not even notice that you got rejected, you know, like less than 6 months ago or something. So there's no harm in applying. What's the worst? Like you will get rejected again, right? So apply again if you want, but there's just no harm in applying. We're pretty much out of time, but if there's any other question, you can feel free to WhatsApp me on this number. Or just text me. I might gate crash the event that's happening next Thursday. I think there's some CS welcome back bash or something, right? So I might gate crash that since I'm only 45 minutes away. But if there are any other questions, feel free to reach out to me via WhatsApp or just text me. Happy to help. And I hope to see some of y'all in person next week. I'm going to stop the recording. If there are any other questions, I can hang out for